As You Like It Shakespeare by William Shakespeare. Written by O. Hutter Chad. Pastoral Comedy, 1599. Heroine Rosalind flees persecution in uncle's court. Accompanied by cousin Celia, Touchstone, court jester. To find safety and eventually love in the Forest of Arden. Historically, critical response has varied, with some critics finding the work of lesser quality than other Shakespearean works and some finding the play a work of great merit. All the World a Stage. Too Much of a Good Thing. Adapted for radio/film/musical theater. Characters. The Court of Duke Frederick. Duke Frederick, Duke Senior's younger brother and his usurper, also Celia's father. Rosalind, Duke Senior's daughter. Celia, Duke Frederick's daughter and Rosalind's cousin. Touchstone, a court fool. Lebeau, a courtier. Charles, a wrestler. The exiled court of Duke Senior in the Forest of Arden. Duke Senior, Duke Frederick's older brother and Rosalind's father. Jacques, a discontented, melancholy lord. Amiens, an attending lord and musician. The household of the deceased Sir Roland de Boys. Oliver de Boys, the eldest son and heir. Jacques de Boys. Orlando de Boys, youngest son. Adam, a faithful old servant who follows Orlando into exile. Dennis, Oliver's servant country folk in the Forest of Arden. Phoebe, a shepherdess. Silvius, a shepherd. Audrey, a country girl. Karen, an elderly shepherd. William, a countryman. Sir Oliver Martaxt, a curate. Other characters. Lords and ladies in Duke Frederick's court. Lords in Duke Senior's Forest court. Pages and musicians. Hymen, a character appearing in a play within the play, God of Marriage, as appearing in a mask. Synopsis. Wrestling scene. Set in a duchy in France. Action, Forest of Arden. Near Shakespeare's hometown. Frederick, usurped the duchy. Exiled his older brother, Duke Senior. Duke's daughter Rosalind. Permitted to remain at court. Closest friend, cousin, only child, Celia. Orlando, a young gentleman of the kingdom. Fallen in love at first sight with Rosalind. Forced to flee his home after being persecuted by his older brother, Oliver. Frederick becomes angry. Banishes Rosalind from court. Celia, Rosalind decide to flee. Accompanied by Touchstone, jester. With Rosalind disguised as a young man. Celia disguised as a poor lady. Rosalind, now disguised as Ganymede, Jove's own page. Celia, now disguised as Aliena, Latin for stranger. Arrive in the Arcadian Forest of Arden. Exiled Duke now also lives with some supporters, including the melancholy Jacques, who was introduced to us weeping over the slaughter of a deer. Ganymede and Aliena do not immediately encounter the Duke and his companions, as they meet up with Karen, an impoverished tenant, and offer to buy his master's rude cottage. Audrey by Philip Richard Morris. Orlando and his servant Adam, a role possibly played by Shakespeare himself. Meanwhile, find the Duke and his men and are soon living with them and posting simplistic love poems for Rosalind on the trees. Rosalind, also in love with Orlando, meets him as Ganymede. Pretends to counsel him to cure him of being in love. Ganymede says he will take Rosalind's place and he and Orlando can act out their relationship. Shepherdess Phoebe, with whom Silvius is in love, has fallen in love with Ganymede, actually Rosalind. Though Ganymede continually shows he is not interested in Phoebe. Touchstone, meanwhile fallen in love with the dull-witted shepherdess Audrey. Tries to woo her, but eventually forced to be married first. William, another shepherd, attempts to marry Audrey as well. But stopped by Touchstone threatening to kill him 150 ways. Finally, Silvius, Phoebe, Ganymede, and Orlando. Brought together in an argument with each other over who will get whom? Ganymede says he will solve the problem. Having Orlando promise to marry Rosalind. Phoebe promised to marry Sylvius, if fails to Ganymede. Orlando sees Oliver in the forest. Rescues from Ilionis. Causing Oliver to repent for mistreating Orlando. Oliver meets Aliena, Celia's false identity. Falls in love with her. They agree to marry. Orlando, Rosalind. Oliver, Celia. Sylvius, Phoebe. Touchstone, Audrey. All married in the final scene. They discover, Frederick has also repented his faults. Deciding to restore his legitimate brother to the dukedom. Adopt a religious life. Jax, ever melancholy. Declines their invitation to return to the court. Preferring to stay in the forest. To adopt a religious life as well. Rosalind speaks an epilogue to the audience. Commending the play. To both men, women in the audience. Love. Central theme like other romantic comedies. Following the tradition of a romantic comedy. A tale of love manifested in its varied forms. Love at first sight. Usurpation and injustice. Significant theme. Frederick usurps the legitimate place of his elder brother Duke Sr. Forces to flee for his life. Oliver de Bois usurps the rights of his younger brother Orlando. Treats him so ungenerously as to compel him to seek his fortune elsewhere. Both outcasts take refuge in the forest. When justice is restored through nature. Forgiveness. Highlights the theme of usurpation, injustice on the property of others. Ends happily with reconciliation, forgiveness. Duke Frederick, converted by a hermit. Restores the dukedom to Duke Sr. In turn, restores the forest to the deer. Oliver also undergoes a change of heart. Learns to love Orlando. Ends on a note of rejoicing, merry-making. Court life and country life. Celebration of life in the country. Inhabitants of Duke Frederick's court suffer the perils of arbitrary injustice. Even threats of death. Courtiers followed the old duke into forced exile in the desert city of the forest are, by contrast, experiencing liberty but at the expense of some easily borne discomfort. A passage between Touchstone, the court jester, and Shepherd Caron establishes the contentment to be found in country life, compared with the perfumed, mannered life at court. Usurping duke, exiled courtier Jacques both elect to remain within the forest. Religious allegory. Contains mythological references in particular to Eden and to Hercules. Music and songs. Known as a musical romantic comedy. A number of songs in the play. More songs in it than in any other play of Shakespeare. Songs, music, incorporated in the course of action, Forest of Arden. Under the Greenwood Tree. Summarizes the views of Duke Sr. on the advantages of country life over the amenities of the court. Blow, blow, thou winter wind. Sung also by Amiens. States, physical suffering caused by frost, winter winds. Preferable to the inner suffering caused by man's ingratitude. What shall he have that killed the deer? Another song adding a lively spectacle. Some forest coloring to contrast with love talk in the adjoining scenes. Highlights the pastoral atmosphere. A lover and his lass. Serves as a prelude to the wedding ceremony. Praises springtime. Intended to announce the rebirth of nature. Theme of moral regeneration in human life. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.